Funding for Shaperless is provided by
Surfshark VPN. Tune until the end to find out about their amazing service. So, anyone who knows me knows that I've kinda sorta parted ways with the MCU. I made a whole video about why, in case you missed it, but the bottom line is, I kinda think it's Jover for this universe. But there was one exception. One more MCU thing that I was looking forward to, because I knew there was very little chance of it disappointing. Actually, that's not even true, because after how massively disappointing Thor Love and Thunder was, despite my love for Taika's earlier work, I was a little concerned about whether or not James Gunn could pull off a satisfying finale for the Guardians in this new, aggressively mid-CU. Well, don't I feel silly, because yeah, Guardians 3 was phenomenal. Easily one of the top 3 best films in the entire MCU. It's like, Infinity War is my number 1, and then Guardians 2 and 3 are in the next 2 slots. It's too soon for me to say which one is better. Oh, and Guardians 1 is my number 4 best MCU film. Basically, if the Guardians are in it, it's peak fiction. Isn't that right? Oh well, that's enough talking about the Shrek the Third of the MCU. Yes, it might actually be that bad in hindsight, but I don't want to rewatch it to find out. Let's talk about good movie now. Everyone knows that James Gunn's writing is the best for these characters. And much like the first 2 films, it really shines here. Everyone's funny, of course, but the characters are also explored in such compelling ways, and you kind of forget how much depth they all have when it's been 6 years since we got a feature film starring them. I like how this film follows up on the crumb of Gamora's character left behind by Infinity War and Endgame. She lost 2 whole movies worth of development, and I like how this film goes through great lengths to show that things just aren't the same with her. I think Peter growing to accept that serves as a strong character arc that still leaves room for fun interactions between the 2 of them. It's conceptually a really funny idea to have Gamora be the unhinged, murder-happy one in the group, while Nebula is more level-headed. Speaking of which, Nebula is great in this movie. I always felt like in the Thanos duology, Infinity War was Gamora's movie, while Endgame was Nebula's movie. That was where she finally got to come into her own as a real hero. The problem is that she did it with those lame-ass Avenger fuckers and not the certified cool-ass Guardians. This is the first movie where she's a part of the Guardian team from the beginning, and it's so nice to see their actual dynamic as allies. I like how much she cares about Rocket and appreciates the cybernetic enhancements he gave her. I like how she butts heads with Mantis frequently. I like when she interacts with Drax. Actually, scratch that. I like when anyone interacts with Drax. It's comedy gold. Drax and Mantis are their usual super fun selves. Groot, who's always kind of felt like an auxiliary member of the group since the first movie, still kind of felt like that, but he did get some really cool new abilities that I wasn't expecting. And Rocket. Oh, you sweet, sweet raccoon boy. I think everyone can tell that even though Chris Pratt gets top billing in these films, Rocket has always been the heart and soul of the team. The second film did a really great job at showing that his unlikable traits stem from insecurity over whether he even deserves to have friends. And the third film gives us so much more insight into how horrible his creation was and how hard it must be for him to befriend anyone. It makes you reflect on just how meaningful the events of these movies have been for him, as he searches for meaning in the wake of the trauma that stemmed from his own creation. The frequent flashbacks we get for his character are devastating, and often brutal in a way that really earns the PG-13 rating. Like, this movie is to PG-13 what Puss in Boots: The Last Wish is to PG. Children will be scarred and parents will complain. Even though this isn't the fault of the film and is completely the fault of how skewed the movie rating scale is. Speaking of PG-13, this movie is also the first one in the MCU to ever use the F word, and it's not even for an impactful moment or anything, it's just for a joke. And knowing that going in made the joke where it showed up 10 times funnier for me. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, you're welcome. The joke will now be 10 times funnier for you. Anyway, back to serious shit. Rocket's history is one of the saddest aspects of the entire MCU, and is heightened by what an absolutely vile villain his creator is. We all hate Ego for that one reveal in Guardians 2, but, you know, he has some depth, he has some remorse. Yeah, no, the High Evolutionary, though, is just pure evil. Not just because of the horrific animal abuse, but the performance just sells it, man. Over the top in this almost gleefully sadistic manner. one of the best comic book villains I've seen in quite some time. It's interesting to see the trend of terrible father figures in Gunn's works that you can see in Guardians 2 and Peacemaker reach its natural apex, with a character who's technically a father to Rocket, but who created him out of pure selfishness and malice, and only sees him as a mistake. The verbal abuse he hurls at Rocket is almost as unsettling to watch as the physical abuse. And then there's the corporate aspect of this villain, which, if you're not aware, James Gunn was initially fired from this film in bad faith since some rando right-wing dipshit showed Disney, hey look, he made edgy jokes on Twitter in 2009, go fire him! And then Disney did. This ultimately ended up leading to him directing The Suicide Squad, which was so good that he's now in charge of all of DC. So that kinda backfired for that dipshit, huh? Anyway, Disney ultimately reversed their decision and brought him back. But watching this film, it kinda sort of feels like he resents the company a bit for this. Because in all honesty, this is probably one of the most anti-Disney films I have ever seen. And it's kind of insane that it exists under their umbrella. There's obviously a lot at play here with a High Evolutionary, but think about how this guy owns a corporation with complete control of all these IP, as the film refers to them, that he keeps a firm grip of. How he seems obsessed with creating a perfect version of Earth that lacks all the negativity. His own world, which definitely has no similarities to Disney World in concept. No, not in the slightest. Don't think about that. How Disney loves putting talking animals in movies, and this guy creates talking animals in an incredibly horrific, gruesome process. At one point, he says he needs Rocket's brain because that's the only brain with new ideas, since all of his other test subjects just repeat the same ideas over and over. The fact that Rocket is what guides him to success, and without Rocket, he can't replicate that same success anymore, so he needs him back. There might have also been some other things that I'll catch on my second viewing, but regardless, I thought it was a fun, cheeky allegory for a villain with a lot of decidedly unfun aspects to his character. I haven't seen anyone else comment on how anti-Disney he feels, so it might just be a me thing. But thankfully, he has so much going for him as a villain outside of this allegory. An excellent performance, a strong personal connection to one of the heroes, and a sadistic and sickening evil plan, which all adds up to give us the definite best villain of the trilogy. Do I have any issues with this film? Well, one thing that struck me as off for the first 30 minutes or so was the editing. I don't know, there are a lot of quick cuts and they don't always make sense. A character can say one sentence and then in the middle it just cuts to a completely different angle of them still saying that sentence. I think there was one scene where Peter and Mantis were arguing and it suddenly just cut to live Drax's reaction, even though seeing his reaction wasn't really relevant to the argument at all. I don't know, it stuck out to me at first, but the problem gradually went away as the film went on, thankfully. There's also, as you can imagine, a lot going on. And while the story is always relatively focused, it can feel like there's a bit too many characters by the end. Tonal whiplash has always kind of been a problem for these Guardians films, and James Gunn's writing in general. And you can feel that here. Sometimes you're not done laughing at a pretty funny joke before, oops, we're back in Rocket's backstory. Oh, I guess we gotta stop laughing now. There was a pretty funny reference to The Thing, but I think I would have found it a lot funnier if it didn't happen during an otherwise dramatic moment. But like, I don't really come to these Guardians films for perfection. I come to see these flawed and endearing characters find a family together and guard the galaxy. The film is pretty long, which I could call a flaw, except honestly, I just didn't want my time with these wonderful characters to end. Especially since I knew this is probably going to be the last time we would see them all together. At least according to many of the cast members, and James Gunn, who's got a whole superhero universe to run now. I'm so glad he got to give them this amazing send-off that pretty much entirely lived up to my expectations. The writing was excellent, the effects were finally good again for an MCU project. It was starkly character-focused and standalone instead of trying to introduce 15 new plot points and characters to the larger MCU. And it serves as a beautiful conclusion that really runs with the themes of change and finding your place in the vast cosmos. I think with this charming, deeply personal, stellar conclusion out of the way, I'm ready to move on from anticipating MCU projects. I'll check some out every now and then if they're of interest to me. But much like Endgame, this one really feels like the end of an era, and like it's time to move on. But I'm insanely thankful for all the memories that the best trilogy in comic book movie history has given me. The last shot of this movie in particular, not counting the post-credit scenes, is absolutely perfect and the exact right note to end the Guardians of the Galaxy on. 9 out of 10, go see it. It's the best Chris Pratt movie with No Sleep Till Brooklyn in it this year. Anyway, this is a PSA. The High Evolutionary is coming to acquire your valuable intellectual property in order to make a live-action remake of it. Stop him from hacking into your system and taking your valuable data with Surfshark VPN. You can use it to trick your browser into thinking you're in another country, thus allowing you to access exclusive Netflix or Disney Plus content you couldn't get otherwise. Want to watch a show starring the Bat People on Counter-Earth, but you live on regular Earth? Boom! Surfshark, problem solved. Plus, its Surfshark alert system gives you alerts anytime your email address or password is compromised. Surfshark Alert scans various databases of leaked information and notifies its users if their data is found so they can take action, which is an absolutely invaluable feature. Surfshark is also totally unlimited, meaning you can use it on as many devices as you like, even all at the same time. No other VPN allows this. Go to surfshark.deal/Rillis and enter promo code RILLIS to get 83% off and 3 extra months of Surfshark VPN for free. It's an amazing deal, and it's even better because it comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you're not satisfied, you can cancel during those 30 days and get your money back. If you're looking for a great VPN, there's no reason not to give Surfshark a try. Once again, head to surfshark.deal/Rillis and enter the promo code RILLIS. Have a great time with Surfshark VPN.